not just from our teachers, but also from our students. So the theme of today is really fitting for both of us because that's our passion to actually shape the future generation of teachers in Indonesia, in Australia, and everywhere, to actually learn to teach in a more interdisciplinary way and in this context of STEAM, so not just STEM, but we are also including the arts here today. We would like to share some insights from our own previous personal and professional experience in Australian context, but also in Indonesia. So for today, Pak Sarkim will begin by outlining some of the literature and the work around professional development. Over to you, Pak Sarkim.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Wanty. Good afternoon, for everyone. I'm very happy. It's great pleasure to meet all of you, and thank you for the Dean of Faculty of Teacher Training and Education at Universitas Terbuka who invite us. This is very good opportunity for us to learn each other. And we work together. Me and Prof. Wanty has been long time to work together. So, and one of our project is STEM learning project. And as it's asked by the Dr. Adayani, we would like to talk about professional development as the big umbrella, and part of that is STEM development. So let me start with the quote from Alvin Toffler. Maybe you know he's a futurist, yeah. He's now at the age of 97, I think, 90, yes. And once he said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So illiterate is not about only about buta huruf, we can say. It's a pity that early this week, we read a news that hundreds of junior secondary students from Buleleng cannot read fluently, but that is one of our situations. But Alvin Toffler has said to us that it's not only cannot read and write, but we have to learn all in our life, relearn and unlearn. We leave what we do not need anymore. We learn what we need. And as we know that we are now in the situation that's very rapid change, as we know that AI has entered our education context and new technology has been part of our situations. And this is the situation when we need to learn all the time. So the next slide about the professional development, I am quoting from Maryland. This is a type of how we learn as a professional. We see here that professional development is not just learning, it's not just practicing, it's not just adding new knowledge or new skills, but it is improving our knowledge. And the important thing is that when we learn here, when we are doing professional development, we learn how we learn. We realize that how we learn will change how students learn. that is not only to add something to our mind, it's not only to add something to our skills, but when we are learning, when we learn, that will influence our teaching. And that's the way our teaching will influence, will impact to the students' learning. So as the result, we always want the impact of our project of learning is the students' outcome. But students' outcome cannot be improved without the improvement of our teaching. And our teaching cannot be improved without the improvement of our skills and our knowledge. So I would like to invite you to think that our improvement, our professional development is one step before, or if we want to improve our students' learning. So it is very critical process that we learn, and our learning will improve our teaching, and our teaching will be impact to the students' learning. This is the framework of our thinking. And currently, we are talking about the two major issues, curriculum and pedagogies, STEM, and how we teach STEM to our students and how we learn the STEM. STEM has been around in several countries. In US has become a policy, national policy. In Australia and European countries, that STEM teaching has been a policy, it has been part of the curriculum, national curriculum. And in Indonesia, as I know that it's been around, but the policy is not there yet. But it is important for us to learn because the coming era is really need for our understanding about STEM. So we are currently focused on STEM, both in the area of subject and also the teaching in this very short webinar. The next is, please. And this is to conclude our session about the learning, to emphasize that I quote from Rabindranath Tagore. It's the very prominent person in the world. A teacher can never truly teach unless she is learning herself. That means that if we want to be good teacher, that means we have to learn all the time. A lamp can never light another flame unless it continues to burn its our flame. Yeah, this is a very deep our understanding. And this is why we need to learn and never stop to learn. And please over to you, Prof. Wanty. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Kim. So I hope you get used to the way we are interacting in this webinar. So Pastor Kim and I will interchange and then add sort of like each other's, build on each other's idea. So I'll begin with the sort of like going through some of the definition of STEAM. So this is only one definition or one view from Engelman that I quoted here. But what we want to emphasize is the premise or the assumption why there is a push towards not just STEM, but also including arts in the equation of STEM. So because nowadays, I think we really need to pay attention to the importance of creativity and critical thinking. And the arts subject is really doing its sort of like job in helping us when we are learning about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to also take into account the interaction and the interconnections with the arts. Because in our everyday life, like, you know, when we see buildings, when we play games, when we dance, actually there is a form of art. When we read literature, that's a form of arts. The connection between arts and literature and science and mathematics is quite intricate. But often when we learn in schools, we often put them in disciplinary silos. So, but in the reality, we need to help children to be able to make connections between different subjects that they're learning. That's one of the premise or assumption as why that is important. So this is just one example that I've taken from looking at the resources that we have in Melbourne. So this website, if I encourage you to go and explore, because they do have resources, they do have examples of how arts can be connected when students are learning about STEM subjects. And also there are resources also for teachers. Obviously, this is set in Australian context, but then we can think about Indonesian context, the local context, how you can adapt and modify, because in Indonesia, there's so many rich culture and, many traditions and many languages and arts, local arts that we can explore. And I know the students from UT, from Universitas Terbuka, you're coming from many different regions. So you might bring your own sort of like local knowledge or local wisdom in the context of planning and teaching STEM and STEAM in this case. So I encourage you to explore and think about how you can adapt the resources into your local context. So I think the next slide, I'll hand over back to Pak Sarkim.
Yeah, thank you. So to our audience, I think we can imagine we are in the big room, very big room, and we are panelists. So we speak interchange, and so we hope that this is really sleepy. Maybe the time is we are, some of you may be tired from the lot of activities from this morning, but we try to keep you awake by interacting. So previously, Professor Wanty talked about one of the characteristic of STEM or STEAM. Here is integrations. Here, by definition, is interdisciplinary science, interdisciplinary approach in which scientific concept, interdisciplinary approach. I think this is one of the phrase, the key, interdisciplinary approach or integration in which science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and other like us are learned into real world. So when we talk about real world, I think our mind can jump to our experience that this is not really new for our Indonesian context. Maybe we have done it, but we name it in different level. But if we reflect to our activities, so it is not really new for us, and then we can improve it. Interconnected context and enable to the development of students' abilities. Remember here, the objective is to development of student abilities to make a real contribution to the society. So the objective, the aim is to help students to do a better learn and to improve their potential to the maximum to optimal level. And please, next one. So this is one of the proof that the STEM has been part of the big issue in educations. This cognition, metacognition, and culture in STEM educations. We here remember again, we find that integrated ideas with the open-ended inquiry into real world. So we come again that interdisciplinary or integrated is one of the key concepts. Its approach is not a method, but it's an approach of teaching. And it starts with real world, real situations. And this is to solve a problem, to improve student skills, students' knowledge, or student thinking. So when in the opening speech, Professor Uchu mentioned about the 4 skills for 21st century. This is one of the teaching that we can implement in our teaching to help students to develop critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and communications. The next one. And here is from US. So we can realize that the STEM has been around, has been part of the national policy for the educations. Again, we here find that interdisciplinary approach to learning and that removes traditional barrier. So when we talk about, sometimes we teach subject as a compartmentalized. This morning math, and then bahasa Indonesia, and then science, or IPAS, or then maybe PKN. This approach is a way students to study about real world and to improve their skills, their knowledge, and their attitude through to study the real world and solve the problem that are around them. The next one. And so we see here the interconnectedness between science, mathematics, technology, engineering, and society. Of course, in every aspect that will be arts. For example, if we design something, it has to be recognized to consider the aesthetic aspect. Technology provides tools to investigate science and mathematics. For example, we know DNA, we know the bacteria, we know the vaccines, because we have technology to investigate, to observe, to analyze. And of course, also engineering makes the technology. The latest one is artificial intelligence or engineering in different areas of life, whether in constructions, in manufacturing, or in mining, everything, constructions, a lot of engineering, and these all influence society. And society, part of the society is us as students, and also school students, who their learn is very much influenced by the development of the society, by the technology. So I think we know that Gen Z, or I think most of you are Gen Z. I'm sure that your way to learn, learning style of yours and me, it's greatly different. And I have to learn very much how to help my students to learn. This is one of the impact of the development of the technology to the society. And also the technology has influenced the lifestyle of the society. So we realize that science, technology, and social life are interconnected and influence our lives. So that also happened to our teaching. The next one, please. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay,
Over to
so
you.
thank you, Pak Sarkim. So this is sort of like coming back to the point that Pak Sarkim already mentioned. So it's kind of like pulling it together. So just to come back to the point that because there are different views or different perceptions. So when we talk about STEAM teaching, like it doesn't, in my view, that I agree with this perception that it doesn't necessarily need to incorporate all of the science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics discipline. And it's not always have to be problem or project based because um, in my in our previous research project, for example, it's more like interdisciplinary between science and mathematics education as I will also share some of the other examples that the current ARC project that we are I'm working in is also more like interdisciplinary. But obviously, you can think about incorporating other disciplines as well. But it doesn't mean like when we refer to STEAM, it has to include all the single disciplines, right? And also, it doesn't have to and with one thing in common. So I think the key idea or the basic idea is to really give students opportunities to apply the knowledge that they have learned in different disciplines and then bringing the learning together and using a particular theme or a particular context as you will experience in our activity today. Okay, so an application is at the heart of the STEAM approach. So I think often when we learn, maybe in the previous, or I hope it's not the current one, but like, in the previous experience in schools, perhaps you have the experience of learning mathematics, for instance, and you learn a very abstract mathematics, and then you come to ask the question, why do I have to learn this when I'm going to apply this? So I think the purpose or the premise or the basic assumption of the having this approach in teaching through interdisciplinary, through real world context, making it close to students' experience is to really helping students to see the connection between what they've learned in schools with what they are going, how they are going to use the knowledge in everyday life. So this is coming back to why it's important. Why is it important? And I think like in the opening remark, Prof. Uchu already mentioned about the 21st century skills. And if we go back to the UNESCO document or policy on education 4.0 basically to prepare students to be ready for the 21st century skills. These are the soft skills that our students needs to develop, including ourselves, to be able to be citizens in the 21st century. So, we need to develop a good critical reasoning and adaptive reasoning, a critical thinking, communication skills, how to be able to work with others, collaborate with others, but also communicate our thinking, how to problem solve if we are facing challenges, like, with we are sort of like post-COVID now, but like, when we never imagined that we had to go through lockdown and the COVID, but COVID also highlighted the importance of, sort of like data and the importance of mathematics, for example, mathematical modeling in being able to understand the life cycle of the virus and the how the virus spread, and how can we address that problem and come up with a vaccine. That's all critical thinking, problem solving skills all together. So I would like now to kind of like go back a step and then think about going back to the context of why we think that STEAM is important, and again connecting it to the 21st century skill and those the soft skills that we are talking about earlier, to be able to critically analyze problems, to be able to solve problem and innovate. I think those are the important things. We also earlier talked about breaking the traditional school curriculum, which is always a challenge. I think even after 30 years of, policy on advocacy around STEM, we still see, I think, very strong disciplinary silos in the curriculum. So it's a challenge, I think, when we have a very structured and very strong traditions of, how maths is being taught, how science is being taught, how science and maths are being approached in schools, to be able to introduce an approach that is a little bit different, quite different in terms of requires quite a different pedagogical approaches in terms of designing and thinking, how we can bring different disciplines together and connecting them together. But I think the shift from disciplinary to interdisciplinary approaches requires that skill sets that we refer to as adaptive expertise and adaptive teaching, because teachers need to be able to adapt their teaching to be able to meet the new demands and the new curriculum. So this is all coming together. So I would like to introduce, and this is where we're going to require your participation. One of the activities that we came up with in the current Australian Research Council project, and this is a multi-institutional project. As you can see, the number of institutions involved, and the funding body is the Australian government through Australian Research Council. And you see the list of the chief investigator there. I would like to start by asking you a question, and then you can actually put your response in the chat at this stage. First question is, what do we know about measuring our heart rate? How do you measure your heart rate? Maybe put in your chat with some responses or some ideas so we can have a read while maybe Sarkim and the committee can actually look at the chat responses. But if you want to sort of like say your answer, you're welcome to unmute yourself. Anyone would like to share their ideas? Okay, the second question, maybe think about this and these questions. How could we measure our heart rate? There are different methods and there are different ways to measure our heart rate. Think about that because we're going to ask you to do that shortly. Okay, and then the other question is that why does our heart rate increase or decrease? Because later in when we collected the data from you, it will be good to think about why. Why do we see different responses? I saw some hands up earlier. Would you like to share your ideas? The names is gone at the moment. No? Okay. Maybe later we will have that opportunity also to just unmute yourself and then share your ideas. Okay. So, and then the other question is, how could you measure your BPM, beats per minute, accurately without using a smartwatch? We are aware that nowadays a lot of you probably are wearing a smartwatch, and then in your smartwatch probably you can actually read your BPM without really measuring it, right? But what we want to do now for this webinar is to actually think about the different ways of measuring your heart rate without using technology at the moment. Okay, list some of your ideas. If you want to put it in the chat, you are welcome to do so. So what we're going to do is we are going to invite you to participate. Okay, think about the question that we asked you before. So we want you to think about, try to find your beats per minute, and we're going to give you some time to do that. Think about two different methods if you can, okay? Records your BPM, and then we are going to ask you to enter your BPM through the QR code that we will provide shortly. Is that clear, the instruction? Okay, so beats per minute means like you need to measure the beats, your pulse rate, or sometimes you call it the Nadi, dalam 1 menit. So in 1 minute. Okay. So get your stopwatch ready, or your you can use your mobile phone, and then you use your timer, because you need to do two things at once. You need to find your pulse rate. Find your pulse rate first. Think about two different ways of measuring it. And then when you're ready, you're going to record your beats per minute, and then you're going to enter the data in this QR code. Okay, so we really need your participation. I saw there are 170 participants, minus the probably two of us, Sarkim and myself. We probably will expect 168 responses, or probably close to that. So we're going to give you a few minutes to do this, and then we will have a discussion after. So I'll keep the QR code ready, so you can take a screenshot, scan the QR code, enter the data, and then I'm going to hand over to Sarkim to share the data when everyone has a go. Sarkim, you can let me know when you see quite a number of participants already responded to our, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
will
then
monitor, and when it's ready, I'll share it here.
Yeah. Let me know if you want me to stop sharing, because I think in case the participants just come in and then they need to have the QR code to enter the data. But if you have any questions, please do put your questions in the chat, so we can see your question.
Okay. Sorry, Professor Wanty. There have a question in chat box.
Okay.
Can I
Sure. Yeah.
read about this question? Okay. Okay, for the first from Zanuba. Okay, wait. For the first, Udan Kusmawan. Thank you, Prof. Wanty, for the insightful presentation. I really appreciate how clearly you're highlighting the flexibility and purpose of STEAM learning. Based on the explanation in the slide 12, I would like to ask, how can we ensure that students experience the real-world application of what they learn in STEAM, especially when not all disciplines are integrated or project-based?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question, because I think there are different level of integration. We didn't actually show the model, but like fast case that Sarkim quote, for example, there is a kind of like a spectrum of integration. So like when we talk about integration, it can start from, obviously, like if you're just teaching math and science, you're not integrating the two disciplines. We cannot call it STEM or STEAM. But when you're started to integrate two disciplines together, then you see the interdisciplinary connection, right? So, and then obviously, like in ideal world, you will be able to integrate all of the disciplines, and then you probably have a common theme, that's sort of like going towards the transdisciplinary, towards the end of the spectrum of integration. But I think what we believe is that as long as you do have two disciplines to integrate, you can have, science and maths, science and engineering, and science and design, and or arts and maths, and arts and science and maths. That sort of combination, we can put it under the umbrella of STEAM, although the level of integration probably is not fully integrated. But yeah, I think that's the point, that we don't want teachers to feel discouraged because they don't know how to integrate, so like, all the disciplines together, to be able to at least try. So that's the point. Okay. And I think there are some ideas about using fingers or using wrist and neck. That's a good idea. And then the responses to the question earlier, I just saw it on the chat. Thank you. That was really good. Thanks, the moderator, Mas Imam. Pak Sarkim, is that enough data that we would like to share?
Yeah, I can show you.
Okay, I'll stop
yeah.
sharing now.
Yeah. The data is still coming in, but here are what we have got at the moment. So the majority is here. The heart rate is on the range between 70 to 74 beat per minute. The second highest is 95 to 99, and the third one is I think we are still waiting. So for the audience, please,
Yeah, so but it's a very interesting data. So I think what we would like to kind of like discuss with you, like in terms of our pedagogical approaches, for instance, as you can see in the graph, you can actually explore different concepts of mathematics, right? So you can talk about sort of like what is the the mode if you're looking about the statistics, like what is the mode, what is the median, what's the average of the pulse rate. Then you need to kind of like think about this is the representation of this bar graph, and then think about, okay, what's the lowest, what's the highest, what are the variables that can explain why there's this wide range of data that we have. And then maybe Pasar Kim, what do you think would be the question or the interesting science concept that you would like to ask the audience?
Yeah. We can imagine if we do this kind of activity with our students, maybe year 5 or year 6 in the classroom, and we directly show it in the front of our class. This is part of maybe subject IPAS, system peredaran darah. I think in our curriculum. So when we talk about this, of course, we study about how our body works in terms of the blood and our heart works. And also, we may ask to the students who has heart rate is very high, for example, 100 and 105, maybe he or she just finished marathon or sprint. So this is very, very, very high. And also there are some of students, 2 students on the 55 to 59. So will become discussion. Maybe our students, our audience here can also provide us idea when we talk about the heart rate in our classroom. Maybe what the student learn in terms of biology, in terms of mathematics, in terms of in physical science in the future concept. I mean, we would like to hear from our audience. Maybe when we learn about this, what do you think? What we can learn from the activity? Anyone would like to share the idea?
Yeah, do we have any participants who would like to share their observation and their ideas about where do you see the connections to primary school context, learning of STEAM like science, mathematics, or do you think that there's other connections to other subject area?
For everyone, if you have argument about this experiment, the relationship about this team, you can so raise hand or chat.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat, or maybe we can also wait until the Q&A sessions to go back to that, but you can save your responses. So Pak Sarkim, maybe we'll continue first.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I stop the share and we
Yeah.
continue to, yes.
Do you want me to share the screen, Pak Sarkim? You're
Yes.
okay. Okay.
Um,
I can share the screen, that's fine. Yeah. So let's go to the next one. Let me see. Yeah. So this is the question for discussions, I think. What are some of the variables? Sorry, I went too fast. You don't, we can skip this one. Yes, sharing your experience perhaps when you measure your heart rate, because he asked you to come up with two different methods. Maybe if we can get a volunteer participants to share your methods of measuring, two different methods of measuring your heart rate, and what do you notice from the graph that Pak Sarkim showed earlier about your heart rate in comparison to the other data that was shared. Perhaps we can invite the participants to share.
For all participants, I hope your argument about your result of experience to count your heartbeat, you can feel free to use in English or in our bahasa
Oh, yes.
Indonesia.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very welcome for you if you lebih nyaman menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Silahkan ke teman-teman.
I think there's a response from Zanuba. I'm reading in the chat. They talk about our heart rate tells us how fast our heart is beating. Usually measured in beats per minute. We can check it by feeling our pulse on the wrist or neck and counting the beats. That's great. And it goes up when we exercise or feel stress, or slows down when we rest. So you talk about resting heart rate, but also when we are excited or we are scared, we watch horror movie maybe, or we went for exercise, very intense exercise, then your heart rate will go up. Okay, maybe I'll invite Zanuba if you're still in the Zoom. Do you want to share how the outcome of your beats per minute, and then what do you notice in comparison to the others? Maybe you can open your mic.
Okay, Mr. Zanuba.
Silakan para mahasiswa bisa berbicara dalam bahasa
Oh,
Indonesia.
yeah, that's right.
It's fine. Please.
Thank you, Miss Wanty.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Miss Wanty Widjaja. I have already measured my heart rate. That the result of my heart rate was 80 beat per minute. That it was measured when I touch my wrist in 60 seconds, and the result is 80 beats per minute. Like
That's great. Okay, so do you know, were you surprised when you when you saw the other people's heart rate that Pak Sarkim showed on the slides?
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing other people heart rate.
Oh, okay, Pak Sarkim. Maybe Pak Sarkim, what's your comment when you look at the heart rate in terms of 80 beats per minute? Is that in sort of like average or the? Oh, I cannot hear Pak Sarkim. Pak Sarkim, you're still on mute.
The average is range from 80 to 100. But some of us slower, some also higher. I think that's also depend on our activities.
That's right. So
Yeah.
I think that's the discussion, isn't it? Like, what are the variables? Why some of us have a very much higher heart rate compared to others. So I'm going to share some insights from the Australian classroom when we implement this lesson sequence. So we implemented in I think five schools participated, but in this case, sort of like looking at the lesson sequence focusing on mathematics and science, as you can see. And we actually taught this in schools. There's some classroom that taught this lesson sequence in year 4, but there's in some schools they taught it in year 5, some schools taught it in year 6. So there's a range of classroom that you can implement these activities. But obviously then, you know, the kind of like a mathematics that you can explore depends really on and the science concept that you can explore depends on the alignment with the curriculum. So so teachers in this case introduce the activities and getting students to measure the heart rate. As you already experienced, you probably put it on your neck or your wrist. And also they discuss the different ways of calculating beats per minute. So we found out that, like, you know, if you measure it for 60 seconds, it actually requires some level of concentration. So for students who are quite young, it's actually quite challenging because they have to think about the time, but also they need to measure the heart rate. So some suggestion is the student suggested, oh, we can actually measure it in 15 seconds or 10 seconds, but then you need to multiply it by 4 or by 6 to get the beats per minute. And in the schools, the teachers really emphasize on the notion of accuracy and efficiency. And then when you're comparing different type of measuring heart rate. In one of the schools who participated in the project, the arrangement of the lessons, because it's open plan, I don't think it's quite a common approach in Indonesia, but in Australia, in some schools, they do have a very big open space where two classroom or 3 classroom are joined together, and that sort of like created some challenges for teachers in teaching this kind of lesson and activity. But also it creates opportunities because teachers think creatively about also where they can conduct experiments. So sometimes they need to think about, okay, if this classroom space is not very conducive, they need to take the students outdoor and then think about, okay, when they need to do the experiment, they can use other spaces to think about to conduct their experiment. The challenges for our schools and our teachers is really to think about the curriculum alignment, because for the year 4, for example, they haven't learned about average, and one of the mathematics concept that they can explore through this activity is about thinking about average and percentages. Is quite common. They taught it in year 4, but like sometimes the alignment with the curriculum is one of the challenges in our context here. This you can see that in school, the school who taught this lesson in year 4, they left out the teachers decided to leave out the discussion on average, and there's a little bit more scaffolding in terms of the discussion about the percentages and the fractions connections to the activity. Whereas in the other schools, this the second school is teaching it for year 6, and you know, they talk about the average concept of average and range in the discussion. So I will stop here and then welcome any questions from our first activity before we go to the second part of the activity. Yes, Anissa?
Okay, Miss Anissa.
So you can talk in Indonesian.
Yeah, and you can unmute yourself, maybe.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity, Prof. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anissa. I am a student in the Teacher Professional Education Program at Universitas Terbuka Serang, Banten. I interested in this topic because I'm currently writing research on the implementation of culturally responsive teaching, like to improve students' understanding of mathematical story problems in a class of 34 students. So my question is, how can STEAM learning be integrated to improve students in mathematical understanding, especially in a classroom with a large number of students? Thank you.
Good question, and that's a common problem for all teachers, I think, because even in Australia, there is a very, if you go to a classroom, there's a wide range of students' learning needs, and also I think there was a question about that in the chat as well, about examples of inclusive education and also in the lower primary. So I think with the activity that we trialed in this case, based on research that we conducted, we learned that the teachers need to adapt the activities for students in the classroom, and for students who are probably a little bit struggling, because I recall when I went to the classroom, there's a student who couldn't find the heart rate. Okay, and then the teacher have to say, okay, it's challenging, and then they are actually learning in small groups and try to support each other. So in your context of cultural responsive learning, I'm imagining you probably use sort of like, I don't know, maybe like local stories or local games or local children's book to help children learn about mathematics. So there's a lot of, I think, research already conducted in Indonesian context about using like traditional games, for example, or traditional dance, or even traditional food to learn about mathematics. So if you go, so Professor Sukardi in Universitas Widjaja have a program of research, and a lot of his students and Prof. Ratu Ilma also conducted research on that sort of topic. So you might want to also do a research on those ideas, drawing on that. And I know there's a lot of resources already in Indonesia that you can tap into. So hopefully that helps. I know if it's a big classroom, you might think about how do you then, put students in small groups and also learn from each other, support each other, but also think about what are the key questions that you want to draw up, I think, in the learning process to support that. I hope that helps, but there will be other opportunities for Pak Sarkim also to jump in and share his examples next, I think. So maybe that will answer your questions as well. Okay.
Yeah, there's a question from on the chat room. Thank you for Anissa for sharing the question, and I think that's a great idea from Professor Wanty. There are two questions from, one is from Natalia Limbong. She asked about the challenges in teaching, especially in physics, because students are less interested in science and low mathematical ability of students. I think this is the common situations in Indonesia and also in some other countries. And I think this is why we introduce STEM. When we teach physics as a subject isolated from other subjects, this topic sometimes very dry. There's no relationship between topic being studied with daily life. But if we present our students with the real life, with real topic, as we have done here in collaboration with Prof. Wanty and also in Jogja, for the students, and the students can join together to study physics, and while study physics, they also study to improve their mathematical ability. So I think this is the challenge for us. And another challenge is to make a flexible timetable at the schools. I think, but using Merdeka curriculum we are very flexible to implement this kind of approach, STEM learning center, STEM learning approach. I think this is a response to Natalia Limbong, and the second is to Naomi. Naomi, bagaimana cara kita sebagai guru menerapkan pembelajaran STEM kepada peserta didik sekolah dasar? Ini Naomi ini sudah menerapkan di kelas 6. Bagaimana di kelas rendah? Ini pertanyaan yang sangat menarik ini. How do we implement STEM for the lower grade, such as grade 1, 2, or 3? One of our project in Jogja is using, I might share this later, but we have done this project, this activity, but maybe one of the key is to discuss, to find out the optimal way, the best way to teach. The idea sometimes is not just strike right away come to our mind. We have to discuss with our colleague, or ask with the students, or read our literature, and then sometimes the idea comes out. So we understand that the topic, the way is not ready, but this is one of the challenges for us to find out to the best approach, the best way to teach in our context. So I think this is one of the challenges that we have to learn, and to think about how we teach the subject, how we teach science and mathematics and engineering in one theme. May I share? Yeah, sure. Sorry, please.
No, I want to add a little bit, because in my recent projects with Bu Destina, Dr. Destina at UIII, we did the professional development workshop with the early childhood educators, and the focus is on helping ECE educators to support their early childhood children, who are obviously very young, to learn about spatial reasoning, spatial thinking, right? And some ideas from the early child educators in their centers is because they have a focus, for example, in some centers, to teach children how to be ready if there's any gempa bumi, to be able to mitigate the natural disaster, because that's in the area where that happens quite a lot. And then the early child educators have an idea of getting children to really create or design an escape. If the gempa bumi happen, what will you do, and how would you stay safe? And then maybe through play, like the process of play, then they think about creating an activity that is very hands-on and very appropriate for young children, and then maybe then draw a diagram together, or using concrete activity to model that. And that could be not just special thinking or reasoning, and which relates to mathematics, but also thinking about design thinking, right? How to design activities when the earthquake happened, to stay safe, because that's part of the important things that they have to learn when they're young. So that's sort of like activity, and maybe that will be a connection also to science concept of the earth and earthquake, and natural disaster. But you don't have to make it too complicated if that's targeted to the lower grade or early childhood educators, but they'll still learn about key concepts. So I think we can continue. Maybe if we still have time, then we'll come back to the question and answers. So Pak
Yes,
Sarkim,
I
I think I
think
can share the screen
yeah,
for you.
sure. Yeah.
The next
Yeah.
slide will be Pak Sarkim's turn.
Yes. So this is the project where we have done in Jogja. We name it, we call it Gembira Loka Zoo Project. Gembira Loka is the name of the zoo in Yogyakarta. Is very famous. I think all Jogja people know about Gembira Loka. And we design students to visit zoo to observe and the animals, but not only the animals, but also the habitats and also the housing of the animals and the layout of the zoo. So they spend a whole day, half day actually, to see the animals and habitats and layout. And students learn about animal classification. This is set theory in mathematics in a very simple way. And geometrical shapes, rectangles, triangles, yeah. And also physical environment of the zoo, and also their report when they have to design a report in a group. So they work together. Some of them videotape this report and present it in the classroom. So from this activity, maybe you all of our audience can imagine the students with happily go to the zoo, because this is very interesting activity. But while go to the zoo, they see they observe because they put the animals not in random, but they classify, they put the housing of the animal, for example, the reptiles, the cats and big cats in particular groups. And then they learn about biology and also the characteristic of those animals and all the classification. This is very basic idea in biology, classification of the animals, and also the habitats. They see the habitats on also their shape of the house, cage, or what kind of materials do they need, how strong it should be put to keep lion or to keep tiger in their house, and what kind of materials do we need to keep snake or birds. So the students learn a lot about this activity, and it's very interesting activity after their visit, and they report. This is one of the report, one of the project. And the second is the project of the bridge. This is very young students, grade 3 students, the bridge project. The students are asked to construct a bridge. Sorry, it's misspelled. using ice cream stick in a groups. Of course, they have to work collaboratively. They have to design before they put that design in place, and also they have to use their mathematical thinking. Prof. Wanty just mentioned about design thinking. This is the way they need to apply in this project. And if the students doing this project, I think 2 lessons, 2 by 35 minutes is just fly out, and students do not think that they have finished project. By the end of the project, they report and they show the bridge, and they explain why did they design this way and how do they construct it, and any aspect of this bridge, and they can imagine several aspects of the bridge and the river they are going to construct the bridge upon it. So this is another project that the students construct a bridge. But I would like to say that this idea is comes up not just suddenly, but after several times we think about, and the teachers, oh, this is the spark idea. I want to ask students to construct a bridge. So I would like to respond to Naomi previously that don't worry about we have a challenge, we not easy, we find that difficult to find the project. That is why we need to learn with our colleague to develop the project. And the third one is about electricity. This is also the students, I think grade 6 of primary school have learned about electricity. Normally, it's very theoretical, but if they see how much energy they use in their homes, they see the matter at their home about how to save energy, to record the use of energy everyday life, and they put that in chart, and also they do project in the group. So the students at the end of the project, they present. Again, you can imagine that this project invite or develop different activities, different thinking abilities, and different skills. And the last one is seashell. This is very young students, grade 1. The students create craft using seashell. So this is like playing. But when we talk about shell, the teacher can talk about sea, of course, about the design of craft they are making, they're constructing, and also in this area, arts is very important because the students develop the crafts that beautiful, good in shape, and also the color compositions, and as we can see that the shape of different group are different. So this is the 4 project we are sharing with you. So by sharing this project, maybe our students, our audience have ideas that STEAM teaching approach can be start maybe when you are doing teaching practice, PPL. You can start how to implement STEAM learning project. I think we have to start to integrate, to do real life, to real activity the student can learn. I think now we have question, and yes, please, Prof. Wanty, yeah.
Thank you, Pak Sarkim. So I think we'll go through this rather quickly, the examples. So I think as Pak Sarkim highlighted in his examples, this particular project is a small project that involved different colleagues from different universities, but it's focusing, this particular one is focusing more on the science concepts, right? But we would like to also show you that with the approach in this case, that the importance of making a kind of like a structured investigation where we encourage students to actually also use different representations, because for young children in primary school especially, we know the importance of using concrete materials when they learn maths, they learn science, and they learn arts, and they learn technology. So these examples highlight that key ideas. So the kind of like the conceptual framework is around model-based reasoning, where students drawing tended to focus on representations of the physical objects, physical models, but also we can see evidence of students using representational model to represent the particles. They use also the concrete materials like Play-Doh to represent the process of this is a process of this sugar dissolving in water. So, you know, and then we can see the more abstract examples of the hypothetical deductive model. So just to show you the process of investigation, so the students need to do the experiments on representing and explaining the process of icing sugar dissolving. And they, as you can see in the picture, they use the different materials there. They also have the whiteboard to record or represent the process. And then they also need to explain the scientific process and what they did in writing. So there are those two different modes of representation, basically. And I don't think we have enough time to go through in details the conversation, but this is to show you the conversation that the students engage with each other when they're doing throughout the process of the experiment. As you can see, they work in groups, in pairs, in small groups, but in the table groups, there are 4 of them. But, you know, they work together in pairs, and then they come together as a group in the table group. And you can see the drawing of the process, what happened. So because they model it using Play-Doh, but they're talking about, you know, how the sugar dissolves from the sugar is visible until they become like particles, and that they're represented using dots in their explanations, for instance. So while the phenomenon of icing sugar dissolving is a quite common phenomenon because they can see they experience it in everyday life, but using that model of a different model of representation helped them to really connect that experience with the scientific concepts and being able to articulate their thinking in writing and also in diagrams. I think that's the key for us. And I think we would like to open it up for any question and answers after all the examples that we provided. Maybe there are still some questions that we would like to welcome you to share your questions. Thank you. Over to you,
Yeah,
Mas
I think we
Imam.
have a few minutes, Mas Imam. And there's a question from Natalia Limbo again. And how can the STEAM support approach support inclusive educations by considering the diverse abilities, learning style, and interests of the students? So as in the real life, our society composed of different people, different characteristics, different abilities, and different interests. We cannot expect all of our society have a different motivation and different abilities. So this is the challenge in learning when we design the topic or the project. And also the important thing is to make a group, to construct a group of the students. We have to know about the students, each of students in terms of learning style, about the capabilities. So we compose of each group from different with different students. I mean, different learning style, different capabilities. So the group project can work together, but first we have to tell the student, to ask students to learn how to work in a group. I think this is the one issue is critical for the students, because normally the student for primary or secondary, junior secondary, they do not want to work with someone else, and I just want to work with my close friend. This is the challenge that we have at the moment. Most of the students, a lot of students do not want to work with openly to other students. So I think this is the real challenge, and of course to find the right project for the students so all the students can work. I think this is a response to Natalia.
Thanks, Sarkim.
Yeah,
I think
thank you.
there's another question now,
Yeah.
right, Tun?
Yeah.
Would you like to ask your question? Unmute yourself. And then Mas Imam can remind us when the time is up. So we are not running over. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I give your time to Miss Nauratan.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. Hello, Professor Wanty and Dr. Sarkim. I'm Nauratan Nazifa, and I'm a student and teacher for professional education program. Especially my major is basic education. Okay, I have two questions for Professor Wanty and Dr. Sarkim. The first question is, I saw your PPT, your presentation, Professor Wanty, that explained a little bit about a rule of art in STEM education, right? And then you give the example of the building in Australia, and it's really interesting. But I'm still a little bit confused about the art and STEM education. Like how that we can integrate art and physics education, especially like that, like how art can solve student problems to understand about physics. That is the first question. Maybe could you please give the simple explain to us about the art and physics education. And then the second question is, you know, me and my friends in here as a new teachers in this industry, and then with your more so many experience, maybe you can give us tips and trick, or what advice that you can give to me and my friends as a new teachers who just begin to implement STEM education in our class. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, great questions. I think Sarkim can speak about the physics education better than me, but like I think if I come back to my experience, like the examples that I use, for instance, the connection to arts and mathematics, right? Yeah, like so if we observe, for example, the building, like very nice art piece, a piece of work, and sometimes like even like in our traditional context of wearing batik, like batik patterns is very geometrical, right? A lot of mathematics there. The connections to physics, probably you can talk about the process of batik, making batik itself. I mean, and then the different compositions that you can use the ink itself. I think that will connect to the concept of the science concept of chemistry and perhaps other concept. Pak Sarkim can speak better than me in terms of the connections to science. But I think like, you know, the things that you really students can see and and they have a very close, it's relevant to them, like wearing batik is in everyday, like children wear batik every day, like, you know, almost every day in Indonesia. And, you know, getting them to notice any pattern in batik, like, you know, because the pattern in batik is beautiful, right? But the process of making batik itself and drawing the batik pattern, the pattern itself is mathematical geometry. You can connect it to geometry, right? The concept of observing pattern, making pattern, because a lot of batik is actually repetitions, right? I think there's a pattern that repeats itself to make it beautiful. So I think, Pak Sarkim, do you want to add something in relation to that example to the science concept?
Yeah, I think when we construct something, we always think about the aesthetic aspect and the practical aspect of the product. So when, for example, for our researcher in physics laboratory, when they design physics equipment, of course, they are not only functional, but also it has to be, when we see it, it's very beautiful. It's not just that sophisticated equipment, but also when we develop a simple equipment or simple physics alat peraga, for example, the students learn about how to develop it in a good way, where if practical, for example, if you use water rocket, the students can design the aesthetic aspect of that, or electricity circuit, a model of electricity circuit at home. You can imagine if our electricians do not use the aesthetic aspect of using on wire and unwire our house, that will be we are not happy to live in that room. So aesthetic is everywhere in our life, as you our clothes, our equipment. So that's part of our life, arts. It's integrated to our daily life.
Thank you, Pak
And one
Sarkim.
question from, thank
Yeah.
you, Bu Nauratun, Nauratun, for your questions. Yeah.
I think there's a second question about how, as a novice teachers, you can start implementing STEAM approach in your teaching. I think one of the challenges that Pak Sarkim talk about is really thinking about the mindset, right? Thinking about, because it's quite daunting. Like personally, I also feel that it's daunting, but then I think working together with other colleagues, like that's why we have the collaboration aspects. Because I mean, I learned physics when I studied to become a teacher, when I was trained to become a teacher, but you know, because I'm majoring in mass education, my physics is not that up to date, right? So when I conducted a STEAM project, usually that's why I collaborated with Pak Sarkim, whose expertise is in science education. In our current ARC project, we have a team of experts who are, you know, have a strength in math education, have a strength in science education. That's why we draw on each other's strength. So my encouragement is to really think about working together with a colleague who feel they're more confident and more knowledgeable in that particular area of expertise. And then you learn from each other, and then drawing, you know, designing a lesson together, gathering ideas. But I think the more important thing is to be brave and trialing, and you know, trialing and error is part of learning. So like Pak Sarkim had the slide earlier, is the process of learning, unlearning, and relearning is part of the journey. We are all learning together. And, you know, as long as we have that habit in mind that we are keep learning, that's the critical step, I think, the first step. Yeah. Pak Sarkim, you want to add something? Sorry. No? Okay. I think in terms of the time, the next slide is Pak Sarkim. You would like to conclude with this slide?
Yeah, I think there's one interesting question. I think the last question before said from Reza. Can religion or religious values be integrated into STEAM? I can say for Indonesian society who believe in God, of course we can. For example, if we learn about butterfly, how it's beautiful, we can learn about biology, about math, how it's flap, the wings, and the pattern, and the physics. So we cannot separate from our creator, the good creator, the ultimate creator. This is God. So it is yes. And yes, I think to conclude, to all the audience, we just established campus. We have a STEAM Learning Center. Also, we have Butterfly House. We have a greenhouse, and also we have model of ecology. So this is open to our students from primary, secondary, lower secondary, and senior secondary. This is part of our program to enhance our teaching in science and math, to promote the teaching at the schools. So I think the time is maybe, yeah, Mas Imam, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the time is done. So.
Yeah. So thank you
Alright.
very much to our colleague, Prof. Wanty. Thank you very much. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for the audience for the participation, and thank you for Pak Sarkim as well. So hopefully the 2 hours doesn't feel too long, because that's why we are trying to engage you in the process of sharing and learning together. Yeah, I'll return the time. We return the time back to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for about the presentation, Prof. Wanty and Dr. Tarsisius, Pak Sarkim. And as we know, come to the end of this enriched section, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to both of our speakers, Prof. Wanty Widjaja and Dr. Tarsisius Sarkim, for sharing this expertise, time, and passion with us. And I hope this webinar has sparked new ideas and encouraged all of us, especially for future teachers, to embrace the power of STEAM in building inclusive and future-ready classroom. And thank you to all participants for your question and engagement. Please don't forget to fill out the feedback form and stay connected to more upcoming progress. Once again, thank you and see you the next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a great day. And I back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramadhan. Let us express our gratitude to Prof. Wanty Widjaja and Dr. Tarsisius Sarkim for their enlightening presentation. A round of applause, please. Okay. We would like to convey an apology from Professor Rahayu that she is currently busy with the other activities, so that the certificate handover will be represented by the head of the Teacher Professional Development Study Program, Dr. Andayani. So I invite Dr. Andayani to present certificate of appreciation to our speaker. Please, Prof. Wanty Widjaja, join us.
Okay, thank you, Pak Adi. On behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Education and Teacher Training, Universitas Terbuka, I have been entrusted with the honors of presenting the certificates of appreciation. Thank you, Professor Wanty Widjaja, for these beautiful presentations. Thank you from Deakin University. We deeply appreciate your enlightening and inspiring presentations. Your contribution has brought new insights into the role of STEM in preparing future teachers to become innovative and interdisciplinary educators. It is our pleasure to present you this certificate as a token of our gratitude. This on the screens, this is an online certificate. Yes, thank you. And also thank you for Dr. Tarsisius Sarkim, Ph.D. from Sanata Dharma University for your valuable presentations and practical perspectives that have greatly enriched this academic webinar. Your insights are truly beneficial to our PPG students and fellow educators as we advance toward 21st century education. Here, certificate online certificate for Bapak Tarsisius Sarkim, PSC. We can give our applause once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, and
Thank you.
Pak Adi, can you close the?
Okay, thank you, Ibu Andayani. On behalf of Universitas Terbuka, I extend heartfelt thanks to our speakers, moderator, and all participants. Your contribution made this event a success. E-certificate will be emailed to eligible attendees. Please complete the feedback form shared in the chat. This concludes today's webinar. Stay inspired and until we meet again. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
Prof.
you,
Wanty,
Prof.
thank you,
Wanty
Dr.
and
Tarsisius.
Pak Sarkim.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye. You may leave the Zoom meeting.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Gapai mimpi tinggi, tiada batas usia. Belajar tanpa henti, di sini tempatnya. Universitas Terbuka, bersama kita melangkah. Universitas Terbuka, masa depan kita. Universitas Terbuka, bersama kita jaya. Universitas Terbuka, masa depan kita. Di seluruh pelosok negeri, juga hingga ke negara, Universitas Terbuka hadir menjangkau yang tak terjangkau, memberi harapan baru bagi semua yang bercita-cita, pendidikan untuk semua, tanpa batas, tanpa sekat. Universitas Terbuka, open education for all, untuk bangsa dan bekerja di negeri jauh di sana. Universitas Terbuka, bersama kita melangkah dengan semangat dan cita, meraih masa depan indah, membahana ukti, menjangkau yang tak terjangkau, dengan semangat dan cita, meraih masa depan baru.
Universitas Terbuka, kami bergerak maju, ukir masa depan, ilmu berkualitas jadi bukti, bersama-sama menuju dunia yang cerah, menggenggam impian menjadi kenyataan. Universitas Terbuka, nur tuling mais, shaping futures bright, menguatkan jiwa, membuka wawasan, bersama kita maju tak terbatas waktu. Dengan ilmu kita melangkah, bersama-sama meraih pintai. Universitas Terbuka, cahaya harapan, di sini kita bertemu, bersatu dalam mimpi. Universitas Terbuka. kita berprestasi. Oh, oh, oh.
Gapai mimpi tinggi, tiada batas usia. Belajar tanpa henti, di sini tempatnya. Universitas Terbuka, bersama kita melangkah. Universitas